Welcome to the RuleBook. I'm your host, Alex Palmer, and I'm the queen of learning things the hard way so you don't have to. On this podcast, we're going to be talking about the mistakes I made and the lessons I learned along the way to create the rules I now live by. On each episode, we're going to be discussing a new rule, how it came about, why I created it, and how you can apply it in your own life. So let's get into it. Welcome to episode number 7. My resume hates me. Happy New Year, everybody. It's 2023. Goodbye, 2022. I hope that this year is going to be a great one for all of us because we really deserve it. Did you know that the year 2023 is actually a year number 7 in numerology? And the way that we get to the number 7 is you add 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 3, and you get to number 7. And number 7 typically symbolizes self-reflection, helping others, and philanthropy. And guess what? This is episode number 7 of the podcast. So I really hope that you're going to find some value in it. Okay, let's get into it. On last week's episode, I was talking about comparing yourself to other people, and I was going back and forth with what the rules should be for that episode because a lot of things were jumping out at me. And as I was thinking of that rule, another rule came to mind, and I was thinking, you know what? I'm going to actually give that rule its own episode because it's that good. So here goes nothing. Rule number 7. Just because it's not on your resume doesn't mean you haven't learned it. And I think this is a big one for a lot of us because resumes can often feel very tricky and hard to navigate because they really don't do a good job of encapsulating who you are and what skills you can bring to a potential employer. At least that's been my experience with them. If you've been listening to the podcast, you know that last year I was working as a social media assistant for an influencer, and it was an entry-level job that did not pay very well. I took it because I thought it was going to be the only way that I could steer my career towards social media. And before that job, I had been working as a paralegal in a law office. I know, confusing. My resume does not make a lot of sense. And then prior to that, I was bartending and waitressing because I was in acting class for the majority of time after I had graduated NYU. During the pandemic, like a lot of us, I became completely obsessed with all things that had to do with my phone. Social media was included. And I was watching YouTube for the first time ever. And I was getting really into social media. Unfortunately for me, I wasn't posting my own content, but I was consuming a lot of other people's content. And what's the thing that they say? In order to not work a day in your life, you just do the thing that you would already do, right? Like it's the thing that nobody pays you to do. And for me, it was fucking scrolling. So I was like, actually, I think that I want a job in social media. I had a work from home job as a paralegal during the pandemic, and I was reluctant to leave it because, okay, steady money, the world is in crisis, and I want to make another career change because I'm very into career changes apparently. And I was going back and forth with this, even in therapy. I was like, oh, I want to do it. I don't know if I should do it. And long story short, the entire law firm ended up closing anyway because of fraud. And yeah, I ended up having no choice because it was like either go get another paralegal job or try something else out. So yeah, I decided to try something else out. And that's when I started to go into social media, but working for somebody else. So because I was getting more and more into social media, I was following more and more influencers and people like that and people with YouTube channels. And one day this influencer, she posted a job position on her stories on Instagram. So I clicked it. I applied because I had applied to 101 journalism jobs that I didn't hear back from. And I was just like, okay, fuck it. Let me go into social media. Let me try it. I know that this job is just an assistant position. And it said you had to have 2 years experience as an assistant. And I was a legal assistant technically as a paralegal for 2 years, over 2 years. So I applied. I did the interview, got through all the rounds, ended up getting an offer. And she offered me something lower than she had posted on the job listing. And I was like, well, why? And she was like, because you have no experience, which is a bold-faced fucking lie. Sure, I didn't have experience as a social media assistant on my resume. No, I didn't have that job there, facts. But I did have 2 years as a legal assistant, aka paralegal. I did have a master's degree from NYU in broadcasting, where they teach you how to shoot and edit videos, which is what she was doing. And I also had internships from MSNBC, Us Weekly, a background in entertainment and comedy. So I'd say that I was pretty skeptical when she told me that I had no experience. I ended up accepting the job because I was fucking desperate and I wanted to do it. And my unemployment was running out. So I was like, okay, fuck it. So I took it at the lowball offer, went to work for her, not for very long. And eventually we were one day on a shoot or something like that. And she was talking about my interview experience. Like we were just chatting about it. And in front of her makeup artist and her editor, she was like, Alex had no experience, zero. So again, it was like she was like pushing this narrative on me that like I had no experience. Like I didn't know what I was doing. Mind you, a lot of my responsibilities were picking up packages, breaking up boxes, throwing away garbage, answering emails, staying on top of her schedule, and then eventually pitching original ideas to her. So I think I had plenty of experience, but that's neither here nor there. But it took a lot of patience for me to not argue with this person when she was, really pushing this idea that I didn't know certain things. And I think that's the thing about a resume. It can and will be used against you, especially by people who you probably should not work for. And maybe we have to learn this lesson, unfortunately, the hard way, like I did. But yes, it's always a red flag when someone says you don't have experience, because I do think we all bring with us a wealth of experience to whatever table we're going to go play/work at. People or companies will tell us we don't have enough experience because it benefits them if we don't. They want us to think that we are not good enough, that we can't do it, and that we should just, start with what they give us and be happy with that. And I just personally think that that's bullshit. And unfortunately, the way a lot of jobs are set up, and I came across this when I graduated from NYU, even entry-level jobs, you have to there's always this caveat of like, you have to have 3 years experience in order to go and get coffee for people. And you're like, wait, I just spent 4 years in college, or I spent whatever amount of years in college, and you're telling me I need another 3 years on the job? Why doesn't my college experience count? Or why doesn't my other work experience count towards this? So I just think like the gatekeeping is such bullshit. And it's really easy to see those job listings and see that list of qualifications and then talk yourself out of not applying. And it's been my experience that 3 years experience kind of doesn't mean anything. I mean, unless you're going for like some very like, I don't know, like a super high level thing. I don't fucking know. But even look at George Santos. Like, you want to talk about embellishing your resume? We all have to embellish our fucking resumes so that we can get anywhere. And it sucks. Like, people are literally out here faking their resumes, which I'm not recommending, but I don't know. You do what you got to do. Before getting that job, I interviewed for another social media manager position with a woman who had a podcast in Long Island. I'm glad she didn't hire me though, because the commute would have been 2 hours each way. So it would have been a 4-hour commute a day thing, which would have really sucked. And I think it would have really depleted me. Again, it was not from that much more money than this other job. And when I went in and I talked about my experience, because again, I didn't have specific things on my resume that these postings were asking for. I talked about other things like my degree in journalism, blah, 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 and being on camera and stuff like that. And the woman said to me, this I found very odd. She was like, well, you won't be on camera, right? It doesn't work like that. And I was just like, what a strange thing to say. Yes, I know that. Like, I know that this is not an on-camera position. But I think that too was like a red flag. Like, people will use your resume against you, but then you'll talk about other things that are, I don't know, outside the realm of that position, and they can be threatened. It's bizarre. So oftentimes I feel like a lot of people get jobs through word of mouth or through connections because honestly, I think resumes just suck. They don't do a good job of fully encapsulating what we have, the skills that we have or that we're bringing with us. And everything is connected, so I kind of don't get it. But I remember saying to my therapist once, my fucking resume looks like I went to jail for 4 years. Because after NYU, when I couldn't get a job in journalism out of college, I ended up pursuing acting and going to a bunch of other classes. And I didn't feel like putting my waitressing and bartending experience on my resume when I was applying to these more professional jobs. So it just looks like, well, what happened to you? So I'm really talking about these experiences because I have ended up in situations time after time where my resume was pretty much not reflecting who I am and was used against me ultimately. So, do not let the fact that your resume doesn't have X, Y, and Z on it make you feel like you can't do something or you're not qualified enough to apply or you don't already know it, because I'm sure you probably do. Or if you don't, you're capable of learning. I ended up not staying in that social media position for very long. Shocker, shocker. Turns out I had a lot of experience, probably more than I needed. And I was eventually fired when I asked for health insurance and a raise. So, yes. But I'm thankful that happened because I think I needed just those couple of months to learn what I needed to learn about social media so that I could have the level of confidence to then try and do those things that I was doing for her and do them for myself. And I then had to look at my own resume and what I was capable of. I'm not talking about my hard copy, stupid ass resume. I'm talking about the resume like within me, like all of my experiences to see, wait, I am qualified to do this. I'm qualified to do my own social media channels and to be my own brand and to be my own spokesperson. So let me go do that. Let me hire me. Alex, you're fucking hired. Let's go. So I'm glad that all of that happened because, as I always say, it was a learning experience, darling. And I learned that to be successful in social media, I would just have to make my own rules. That's exactly what I'm doing. So thank you guys very much for checking out episode number 7 of the RuleBook. I hope that you will come back, tell a friend to check it out. New episodes come out every single Monday on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. So please subscribe if you can and follow me at Serious Actress on all social media channels. Bye, guys.